It's 4 p.m. on the East Coast. Welcome to our America Decides election night coverage.
Folks, as you know, this has been an election year like no other, with a former president convicted of multiple felonies, facing even more indictments, and threatened by 2 assassination attempts.
And he's facing a historic vice presidential nominee who has only been at the top of her party's ticket for 107 days. Of course, after President Biden stepped aside from the race in July. And America faces what could be a long counting of votes in a country that is deeply divided and anxious about the outcome. Do any officials give you a day of when we might know?
That depends. It also depends on how close the race is, right, and when they might be able to call it, because now nobody, I should say, is willing to commit to a deadline for when they think it's going to happen. But we are hearing Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, and that is at least a day and a half earlier than 2020.
It's going to take 10 to 13 days, the state says, before Arizona's vote counts will be finalized, and that's normal because
this is really interesting. 35% of the people polled say the state of democracy is the most important issue. That's kind of surprising because I would have thought the economy would be number one, but the economy is followed there by a very close second. 31% say the economy, 14% say abortion is. 32% of voters say the condition of the economy is good. 67% say it is bad. If you are, so we're looking at those numbers there. What strikes you?
These are the most preliminary bits of data we will get tonight. These will change. Nothing you see right now holds up even within an hour.
For months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, watch me. Well, then
with the COVID, with dealing with everything we had to do with if we finally beat Medicare.
One of the questions is whether we're going to have a rerun here of 2020, where Donald Trump comes out after talking as though victory were going to be inevitable and then accusing the American public and the 10,000 jurisdictions that run elections of a giant fraud, claiming victory while votes were still being counted. If that were to happen, all bets are off. But like I said at the top, and as a supporter put it to me, the one thing that's certain is, in this room tonight, there will be tears by the end of the evening.
We did see the Democrats voted in large numbers in the early vote that may have banked hundreds of thousands of early votes, which would be a good sign for Kamala Harris.
Nora, I've been talking to top campaign officials, and they all continue to say that they're feeling good right now. They keep pointing to early results from Indiana, because that's one of the first states to report, where they say in suburban areas, former President Trump is doing a lot worse than he did 4 years ago, and they are pointing to that as a sign of strength for the vice president. They say they're very pleased with the Puerto Rican turnout in Pennsylvania. When will she speak to the crowd that is starting to gather here? Nobody knows. It all depends on how the night unfolds and how quickly the results come in, and, of course, what Donald Trump does, which is always a wild card.
The only certainty at the end of tonight is tears. They're hoping it'll be tears of joy if Donald Trump can pull off what they see as the greatest political comeback in history. And Donald said he's feeling very confident, has a big lead. One of the worries, some reporting from our CBS colleagues, is that he may come out early, declare victory, do so before millions of votes are cast. And if that's the case, Nora, well, we're in a world reminiscent of 2020, and it'll be a long and chaotic night.
In Florida, once an electoral battleground that has moved right in recent circles, CBS News projects Trump will win the Sunshine State. Major, what's happening in Georgia?
So we just mentioned, Nora, that Georgia we rate as a toss-up. We have about 33% of the vote in. You can see the distribution so far. So why do we do that? First thing I want to show you, what is our estimate? Our estimate is about 50-50 when all the vote comes in. I'm just going to run through. I'm not going to name the counties, but just watch the counties as I go through them and compare where Trump is now compared to where he was in 2020. You'll just see as I move through them, again, I'm not going to name them. The names aren't important, but you just see he's running slightly ahead of what he did in 2020. That was exactly the strategy the Trump campaign wanted to have. More turnout and higher vote totals all throughout rural parts of every battleground state, at least in Georgia. And I could go all over the map. The trend line is pretty consistent, Nora. He is doing that, even though
some of them, what the Harris campaign is seeing is real encouragement there. That, in fact, she's running ahead of President Biden in some of those ex-urban counties around Atlanta, higher totals than what the president got 4 years ago. That is how she wins a state like Georgia tonight. Can you run up the numbers in the suburbs? Can you get young college voters across the country to turn out? Can you lean on the black and Latino voters you need? In Georgia already, we're seeing good indications that the reason she's keeping it even is because Democratic advantages there around Atlanta, the biggest city in the South, may be improving.
Look, Al Schmidt, the Secretary of State, told me we are probably not going to know the results from Pennsylvania tonight. Delay does not mean anything nefarious is happening. Pack your patience, you said at the top.
Thank you very much.
But tonight, in terms of talking to Republican officials, they are feeling very good about how things are looking.
Campaign headquarters, it's 8:30 p.m. in the East, 5:30 p.m. in the West. Let's check in with the three battleground states where the polls are closed. In Georgia, CBS News characterizes this race as a toss-up. Look at this. Only 53% of the vote in, even though it's 8:30. You know, the Secretary of State had told us we were going to have more votes in. I'm going to check in with David Becker on that, what's happening. And we'll check in at the Magic Wall. Let's take a look at North Carolina, another important battleground state tonight. Again, it is early in the night, but look at this. It is a toss-up at this hour. New reporting coming in from North Carolina we want to share with you shortly. And then Pennsylvania, the electoral prize of the night. And remember, Pennsylvania takes a little longer to count, but these are the early numbers that are coming in, and CBS News rates this as a toss-up.
You know what has been so fascinating to watch in this campaign is how Kamala Harris herself has avoided using gender as something to campaign on. And I can't help but think about the difference between this campaign and Hillary Clinton's campaign. I had that symbolic glass ceiling that she clearly did not crack at that time. And here we are with Kamala Harris intentionally almost avoiding questions about and having to answer questions about her gender, that she has not asked voters to see her gender or her race or her ethnicity, for that matter, as a reason that she should get this job. It has been a very clear strategy for her to not campaign on gender.
And Nora,
there were cracks in the glass ceiling, just didn't get shattered.
Some cracks, exactly.
I remember that speech. Yes. You were there, yes.
It came late, exactly.
If you dive deeper into these gender numbers, there's some real concern for Democrats. Let's start with Latino men, for example. Trump is winning them 54-45 right now. And she's only winning 61% of Latinas. Those are low numbers. Those are not comfortable numbers. The other one, if you look at white women, the hope was that she could win them nationally, given the abortion issue, given the fact that she would make history. Trump is winning what traditionally happens, 52% of them, based on this exit poll. So no measurable difference there either among women. Both of those would be real warning signs for the Harris.
And the Trump campaign is blowing up everyone's phone up here on the press riser with what they see as optimistic numbers with independents, with Latinos, and with black voters. And all of that adds up to the first bubbles of a certain champagne mood in the room here in West Palm Beach. It is still early. They are still prepared for anything, but they're definitely starting to smile, definitely starting to sway. They're feeling good here at Trump headquarters.
All eyes are on the 7 battleground states. You can see them here in purple. In Michigan, CBS News rates this as a toss-up. In Wisconsin, CBS News rates the presidential race there as a toss-up. And the same can be said in Arizona. CBS News rates this as a toss-up as well. In Pennsylvania, polls have been closed for an hour in the Keystone State. And you guessed it, CBS News rates this as a, everyone say it, toss-up. And in Georgia, the Peach State, CBS News rates the presidential race as, say it together, toss-up. Yes. And in North Carolina, CBS News rates this as a toss-up as well. So at this hour, the battleground states are all toss-ups. That means the vote is still coming in. It's just too close for us to be able to say what's happening in those states. But we've got lots of data to share with you from the exit polls. Let's take a look at the great state of Texas. CBS News projects Donald Trump will win in Texas. We'll have those big numbers from Donald Trump, in part because of the calling of Florida and Texas. Of course, when states like New York or California or other big electoral prizes come through, if they go for Kamala Harris, that will add to her vote tally as well.
So they're feeling good about Virginia. Down in Mar-a-Lago right now, my top sources say they're feeling very good about North Carolina and Georgia. That makes the emphasis on Pennsylvania so much more key for Democrats.
Now, in terms of talking to those with the Harris campaign and Democrats here in this state, they are continuing to keep their fingers crossed because they acknowledge and note that there are still a lot of outstanding votes out there, particularly in Democratic strongholds right here around Metro Atlanta. Places like Fulton, DeKalb, and others where they feel they will pick up some more numbers and pick up some more steam. So they are continuing to watch and wait these returns as they come in.
DC and Ed, I know it's still loud there as many people are celebrating and waiting to potentially hear from the vice president. But what are you hearing?
Hi, Nora. It is a celebratory mood here in Washington, D.C. on Howard's campus. Every time the announcement comes of a state won by Kamala Harris, there are huge uproars and applause. And, of course, when Donald Trump, in fact, wins a state or projected to win a state, there are boos. But we should note what we've been hearing throughout, and as we've been saying all along, it is really down to those crucial states. At the early part of the evening, it seemed, and I talked to the National Urban League, the National Action Network, and the NAACP. They were all excited about the turnout as we've gotten deeper into the night. Some of those states didn't hit the projections they wanted to see, only by a couple of percentage points. And so the black vote, while it turned out, particularly in Detroit, in Atlanta, and in Philadelphia, there is still concern that it may have been a little softer than they wanted to see, but it is, as you all have been saying all evening long, still very early, and we'll have to see some of the. We will just have to wait and see how the black vote starts to roll itself out and the impact it will have.
But what you end up happening is a population of people are in this room and in many rooms like them all over the country who think they won in 2020, think they're winning again here in 2024, and think the only way they can lose is if there is cheating. And so, but when you talk to people here, they say, yeah, we are also concerned about violence by Democrats. And their imagination, what's going to happen tonight and in the days ahead, is potentially riots in blue cities. Nora.
And all you have to do is look at our nation's capital, which is boarded up and fenced up in anticipation of some of the concern about what is ahead. Tony DeCour just in from the CBS News data desk. CBS News projects Donald Trump will win the state of Ohio, the home of his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance.
But still, a lot of votes have not been tabulated just yet. The UAW president took the stage not too long ago, encouraging people, trying to create that celebratory mood, telling me earlier today that they feel confident in the strides that they've made, knocking on over 300,000 doors in the last couple of weeks of this campaign.
7 states, they are all toss-ups at this hour. Let's take a look at the Peach State of Georgia. At this hour, you can see 86% of the vote in, but we're going to at North Carolina. As you can see, about 80% of the vote in the Tar Heel state. Donald Trump currently with a lead, but we still rate this as a toss-up. And then take a look at Pennsylvania. This is the big electoral prize of the night, with its 19 electoral votes. And Republican sources I'm talking with there say that Donald Trump has performed well in the rural counties, but just 57% of the vote in. And if you were with us 4 years ago on this journey, you'll remember that it took a few days to get the full count in from Pennsylvania. They do not pre-process their ballots like most other states do. So it takes them a little bit longer. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It just, you got to pack your patience. We have, but first, CBS News projects that Iowa is for Trump, that the former president has won the state of Iowa. You see just a little bit more than half the vote in there. There had been that poll by the Des Moines Register suggesting that she was doing much better than expected. But Iowa, a reliably Republican state there, and those 6 electoral votes now in the Republican column. Coming on the air with some breaking news in Georgia. CBS News now rates the presidential race there as lean Trump. This is the first of the 7 battleground states that we are rating as lean one way or the other. And in California, Vice President Harris's home state, CBS News projects that she will win there. And here is where we stand right now in the race to 270, shows Donald Trump with 211 electoral votes and Kamala Harris with 145.
I'm hearing that the Democrats are cratering their support among Latino voters, and it's across the board.
Leslie Sanchez, thank you. And we have a race alert at this hour. CBS News rates North Carolina as lean Republican. And so while the vote count is still coming in, our CBS News models indicate this race leans Republican for Donald Trump. Remember,
in the way that the vice president needs if she's going to prevail in North Carolina. Our estimates suggest she needs 59% of that outstanding vote. And we project, when it's all said and done, and Nora, you join me over here. Great to have you back at the wall. 48%. So that's a big gap. 59% she needs. 48% is our current estimate based on outstanding vote, historical patterns, and exit poll data.
Says they still believe that the blue wall is the ultimate way to win. It's close in Pennsylvania. It may take a couple days to get the vote there. Michigan, it looked fairly good last time we looked. Wisconsin did not look that great.
Look good, no. But so let's go to Arizona.
Yes, because this was my thing. Because Wisconsin is 11 electoral votes. If she loses that, she has to win Arizona. So what is happening in Arizona? What is happening in Arizona?
So here we have 51. That's overperformance of Joe Biden. Things presently look good in Arizona. And
for the Democrats.
For Kamala Harris. Here's where what does Kamala Harris need in Arizona to prevail? 50%. What do we have a current estimate of her projected ability to retain or achieve from the outstanding vote? 51%, on the razor's edge.
So then for Kamala Harris, what does that look like?
Okay, so she's at 226.
Got to take Pennsylvania.
Let's say she squeaks by there. Let's say she squeaks by in Michigan. Now she needs 10 more.
Arizona.
Let's make that red right now. See? Okay, this is the problem for her.
This is the major. All right.
Okay.
Nevada?
Turn it blue.
Turn it blue. Okay. She holds Nevada from last time.
But he wins.
He does win.
Okay.
Arizona.
Give her that one. She wins.
That shows you exactly.
This is why
Arizona.
we're going to be here a few days potentially, because if we're going to get in all these tight margins, we're going to have to be waiting for every single last vote. That's the way it could conceivably happen.
If you haven't bitten your nails yet,
start biting.
They're going to be bitten. All right. That's where we stand. Those are the past, Nora.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just walking back over.
Yeah. Speaker Mike Johnson just made remarks in Louisiana to his supporters. He believes he will enter next year as the Speaker of the House should he win the gavel again with more Republicans in the House. He also stated publicly that he believes there will be a Republican Senate and a Republican in the White House in Donald Trump. So
do you believe there is still a path to victory for Vice President Harris?
Well, there's still a path, but it's thorny. And we'll see how it comes out. The fact of the matter is that the blue wall is still there, though there seems to be some underperforming in some areas where we thought we were in good shape. But we'll just have to wait and see. It's not over yet.
Mm-hmm. As you noted, there is still a blue wall path to victory for the vice president. I know you know just about everybody in the Democratic Party. What is their concern tonight? Where is she underperforming?
There seems to be some underperforming taking place in Pennsylvania, really. I thought that there's some counties in Pennsylvania we seem not to be performing as well then. There's some that we look like we are winning, and still by a lesser margin than I expected. I'm really concerned about Michigan as well.
And we have a CBS News projection for the battleground state of North Carolina and its 16 electoral votes. We can project that Trump will win North Carolina And the Senate is lean Republican at this hour. And let's take a look at the blue wall states. Harris campaign manager saying she still believes there is a path to victory with the blue wall states. CBS News rates the states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin as toss-up. What accounts for where we are at this point of the night? We should note that all the votes are not in. Things can change. The only state we projected is North Carolina. But where are we?
Well, just as a matter, whatever happens tonight, in terms of a political comeback story, leaving aside that he's totally redesigned a party around his views on the economy, immigration, it's already the fact that he's doing so well and it's so close is quite an extraordinary comeback for him.
Well, in addition to not only what happened on January 6th, even following those two impeachment trials, but of course, then two assassination attempts, a convicted felon, multiple federal felony counts against him.
Senior members of his national security team all saying he should not be allowed near power again. I mean, these are not rinky-dink people. These are former secretaries of state, national security advisors.
Nora, CBS News has learned that Vice President Kamala Harris is now very unlikely to travel here to Howard University from her home about 2.5 miles away to deliver any kind of address to the supporters gathered here. Things are still just too uncertain. We are being told that it is unlikely she will come here to say anything. The question becomes, if she doesn't come here to speak to the thousands of people who are still gathered here, yes, the crowd has thinned out somewhat, but there's still a lot of people here who think they're going to be hearing from her. The question becomes, does she have someone else come in her stead to basically address the crowd and explain to them that the vice president is not going to be here to speak herself?
And we're going to go to that crucial definition of where things stand. 58% of the outstanding vote. What do we believe our projections of that underlying vote is achievable? 47%. That is becoming a gap that presents us with the designation moving from toss-up to lean Trump.
So if she loses Wisconsin,
10 electoral votes.
Right. She might need the 11 electoral votes that is in Arizona.
Oh, she would desperately need the 11 electoral votes.
Right, that's the only path to victory.
That's it.
So where does the vote look like now in Arizona?
The needs for Harris, 50. Our projections, 51%. That same designation we had a little bit ago because they just haven't counted that much vote in Arizona.
CBS News projection for the battleground state of Georgia and its 16 electoral votes. We can project that that Donald Trump is the projected winner in the state of Georgia at this hour. Our first projected winner of the night, Georgia, for Donald Trump.
The first flip.
The first flip, as we know that Joe Biden won Georgia 4 years ago. That's significant.
Yeah.
I know that as we watch the crowd disperse and wait for word from the Harris campaign about what is next, we enter this late morning period where votes are just still being counted. In Pennsylvania, it could take a couple of days. Welcome back to CBS News Election Night. You're seeing video of Trump supporters reacting to a projection that the former president will win the state of Georgia. As we see that Donald Trump has won Georgia and North Carolina, the path narrows for the vice president as you have rated Wisconsin as lean Republican.
Yep.
So many people are asking what's going on in the blue wall. What's happening?
Is that not only is turnout a little bit down, but Harris's margins are a little bit down from Joe Biden's in 2020.
Welcome back to CBS News Election Night headquarters in New York. It is now 1 a.m. in the East, 10 p.m. in the West, and polls are now closed across all 50 states. Former President Donald Trump and Republicans are having a very good night. And CBS News rates all 4 of those battleground states as toss-up at this hour.
And Lindsay, I can also tell you that the Trump campaign feels very good, and they mentioned the gender gap in the regard that there was so much made about this so-called silent Harris supporter who might, vote for Harris and not talk about it. And they're saying that, that just didn't pan out. Lindsay.
It is now 1:30 in the morning, and just in from the data desk, CBS News rates Pennsylvania as lean Trump. Keystone state there, leaning Trump, as we have just about 94% of the vote in. Doing well, Donald Trump doing very well in rural areas. And let's take a look now at the blue wall. This was the easiest path to victory for the vice president, Kamala Harris. Michigan still a toss-up at this hour, but her path to victory has narrowed significantly.
While we were in commercial break, we're saying lean Republican for Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, Fox News, which is playing on the monitors here behind me, they have called that race for Donald Trump. And when that moment happened, it got loud in here. There was a roar. There was reverberations. The phones came out. What went wrong for Democrats tonight? Why were they unable to capitalize on what seemed like some momentum in the final week? I'm just saying simply, Democratic heads are exploding all over America. How do you explain what happened to them? A couple of the quotes I got from people is, look, Democrats have lost touch with everyday Americans. Beyonce doesn't pay my bills. Democrats turn their back on us, and if you turn your back on us, eventually we're going to turn our back on you. It's a wake-up call here. That's the feeling in the room for Democrats.
For the battleground state of Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral votes, CBS News projects that Donald Trump will be the winner of the state of Pennsylvania. That is a state that Biden carried 4 years ago, but Trump won in 2016, a major projection, and that essentially closes the pathway for Kamala Harris and the presidency.
It's interesting. When attack, deny, never admit defeat, and never apologize. And people seem to think that that is what he continues to do in all areas of his life when he is faced with a problem. And that seems to have served him well as we sit here tonight. It's interesting, when we started the night, guys, we kept saying it's going to be a long night. We're not going to know anything today, certainly not Pennsylvania. And now we're sitting here a little after 2 o'clock, and it looks like that this race is over.
And that we were bracing collectively, I think, as a country for Donald Trump to preemptively declare victory. Yes. And I don't know that this is so preemptive at this point.
And while he doesn't have everything he needs to win, should he win, he'd be the oldest man ever elected and the second man to be elected at different times.
And what happens to Republicans who may not be okay with the way Donald Trump behaves or some of his beliefs? Are they just totally out now?
And now, Donald Trump, along with his wife, his vice presidential pick, his son Barron Trump, who we rarely see.
And cast his first vote today for his dad.
Morning, it is 3:30 a.m. in the East, 12:30 in the West. We have been on the air for 9 hours straight covering this election, and it has been a very big night for Donald Trump and the Republican Party as the former president appears to be headed for re-election. He declared victory in the past hour in a speech to supporters in Florida.
Kamala Harris got 10 points more than Donald Trump, but Joe Biden got 15 points more. This is a post-Roe going away, post the conviction of Donald Trump.
It's almost inexplicable.
Well, it's going to require a lot of, there'd be a really interesting conversation because that
45%.
That exactly 45% for Donald Trump. He got 32% in 2020.
And I remember before that, George W. Bush had the high water mark at 40%.
Right. Yeah. And
one of the things that we have heard about the people surrounding Donald Trump is the idea of retribution. And he has talked about retribution. There has even been a so-called secretary of retribution, where all of those who have wronged Donald Trump will face retribution, punishment, whatever it may be, from the former president, future president, and the White House. How will the Justice Department in some ways be changed and perhaps weaponized against those enemies.
I mean, he has threatening revoking broadcast licenses for broadcast networks, including the threat to revoke this one. Going after what he calls the enemy within of his political rivals by name, Biden, Pelosi, the entire, quote, Biden crime family. He says he would fire special counsel Jack Smith within 2 seconds of taking office. And as we were saying earlier, he called for the televised military tribunal of Liz Cheney. We started this conversation, John, when you questioned whether the checks in place would keep him in check. I wonder if there's anyone left around him right now who would even impose some of those checks. The John Kellys and the Mark Milleys are gone. Those are the people who were the checks before.
And CBS News now projects that Donald Trump is the winner in Wisconsin. That gives him the number of electoral votes he needs to become the 47th president of the United States. This is an incredible moment in American history for Donald Trump, who faced a number of challenges in this contest. It was an election unlike any of us have ever covered.
A life unlike any we've ever covered. This will usher in potentially an unprecedented era in American history to have someone who believes firmly that he has total presidential power in terms of official acts based on the Supreme Court ruling earlier this year, does not have to serve in prison despite being convicted in a criminal trial, and despite pressuring his own vice president to overturn an election, has been warmly embraced by the party, the Republican Party once again, and won the presidency based on our CBS News projection. And he is willing and able and ready and excited, I'm told, by sources close to him, and including by him himself, to return to the White House and wield power.
Trump could win all of the 7 battleground states tonight?
Yeah. Well, maybe not could. Maybe not this morning, but yes, he is on pace to win Nevada. He is on pace to win Michigan. Arizona is the only one that still looks theoretically possible for the vice president.
I want to be clear about the timing. He could win them, not necessarily tonight. I'm not sure all those ballots will get counted this evening or this morning, as the case may be.
It's the morning. It's the morning.
It's all a blur now. But at some point, we'll get through Nevada, Arizona, and Michigan.